The two beasts. In the book of Revelation, chapter 12 through 14, the very final series of disasters is about to take place. It will be the toughest for the church. Demonic powers will gain a stronger grip on society than they have ever had before, even though their grip is about to be broken. Revelation chapter 12 through 14 introduces three persons who form an alliance to rule the world themselves. One is angelic in origin and nature, a great dragon and ancient serpent, otherwise known as Satan or the devil. Revelation 12:9. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent, called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. The other two are human origin and nature, beasts, also known as Antichrist. 1 John 2:18. Little children, it is the last time, and as ye have heard that Antichrist shall come, even now are there many Antichrists, whereby we know that it is the last time. He is also referred to as the man of lawlessness in 2 Thessalonians 2:3. Don't let anyone deceive you in any way, for that day will not come until the rebellion occurs and the man of lawlessness is revealed, the man doomed to destruction. And he is also called the false prophet. Revelation 16:13. And I saw three unclean spirits with frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet.
This beast has two horns like a lamb and speaks like a dragon. This signifies a deceptive nature, presenting a gentle and harmless appearance while being inherently dangerous and malevolent. This second beast represents the false prophet who will lead people astray, promoting the worship of the first beast, the Antichrist. The lamb-like horns symbolize a religious facade, suggesting a semblance of Christianity, but the dragon-like speech reveals its true satanic influence. This passage warns believers to discern true teachings from false ones, emphasizing that even those who appear godly can be instruments of deception. The alignment with satanic forces will lead many away from the truth, showcasing the importance of steadfast faith and adherence to biblical doctrine. This passage serves as a critical reminder to Christians to remain vigilant and discerning, recognizing that outward appearances can be deceiving, and to hold firmly to the truth revealed in Scripture.
Believers are going to be deluded and deceived by Antichrist. And there will be peace. He will be a man of peace, and he's going to bring peace to the world. But it'll be a deceptive peace and a short peace, and it won't be long. It'll be the devil's peace. Permanent peace is only going to come when God comes in the person of his Son, Jesus Christ, and sets up his kingdom and destroys the devil. And the Bible teaches that the devil is going to be thrown into the lake of fire and brimstone. And you won't be plagued with the devil anymore. I'd say, Lord, hurry up, because the devil is causing a lot of trouble.
Zarskis, I told you guys 4 years ago. God bless the USA!
Well, Mr. President, I appreciate you allowing me to join you on this incredible journey. I thank you for the trust that you placed in me. And I think that we just witnessed the greatest political comeback in the history of the United States of America. And under President Trump's leadership, we're never going to stop fighting for you, for your dreams, for the future of your children. And after the greatest political comeback in American history, we're going to lead the greatest economic comeback in American history under Donald Trump's leadership.
Breaking news from the decision desk. NBC News can now project that Donald Trump has won the state of Wisconsin, which means he is the winner of this race and will return to the White House as this country's 47th president. And for so many of you watching right now, that news is, to say the least, a lot to digest. I understand that personally. After he lost 4 years ago, he refused to accept the outcome and incited a violent insurrection on our nation's capital. He's campaigned while facing criminal indictments related to his efforts to overturn the 2020 results, and he's run as a convicted felon. During this campaign, he has also promised to essentially be an authoritarian leader, to use power like no American president ever has before, and wield that power to go after his political enemies. This is a man who's also bragged about overturning Roe v. Wade and stripping away women's bodily autonomy. He's promised to conduct mass deportations to crack down on the rights of millions of Americans. Donald Trump is an anti-democratic force, but he's just been elected democratically in our country.
Whether we will begin the 4 greatest years of the history of our country, right?
Trump's over the top, not only in the Electoral College, but it looks right now, we'll see how California comes in, like he'll be the first Republican since '04 to win the popular vote. I think George W. Bush had about a 3 million lead there at the end of the popular vote, and Trump looks like he might very well top that. Anyway, we still have Michigan on the board, Arizona, Nevada. It's not going to matter. Those will just be additions for Trump. If we go back and think about where we were at the start of the night, I was going to say, for those of you just joining us, but if you're just joining us, you probably should have your head examined to turn on the TV at 3 o'clock in the morning after the election's been called. But that said, Georgia and North Carolina come in, and what Scott and the guys at DDHQ were saying is if they called, there's 16 votes each, electoral votes. If they called both, and they did, fairly early in the night, relatively speaking, those 32 electoral votes would give Trump 251, and they said it would give him about an 85% chance of winning, right? That's what we knew this coming in. We're thinking, boy, as soon as those get called, he's in good shape. But we're also saying the best path to victory for Kamala Harris would be to win these 3, to win Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, the so-called blue wall, and it didn't seem out of the question. But the problem for Harris all night long is her margins. They just weren't where they needed to be, and then eventually we saw it, and we're watching it, and they said, yep, Alaska had already gone. So he just needed the 19, and DDHQ made the call first on Pennsylvania, and that was it. Get your colors right, Connell, so you get it right to red, and it was 270. And then Wisconsin, it was just an additional number there to get us, where we are and put them up at 280. So as we go back, to the live results such as it is, we'll see how like Michigan comes in. We'll see. Arizona's actually been close. I don't know where it is right now. They got 58% in. So Trump's gone up a little bit, so he might very well win Arizona. But Harris had a better shot there than she did in some of the blue wall states, which I thought was interesting. But I say margins, like in Pennsylvania. All night long, we were watching and comparing, where Harris and Trump were versus last time around, like was called a historical comparison, just put up the 2020 election when Biden won. By the way, for Trump to get to 50 in Pennsylvania, almost 51 is a story. Like his number is always the same. This is the 3rd time he's running. He usually gets 48 point something, but now he tops 50% in Pennsylvania. So the thing is, you go in the western part of the state, for example, he was just running up margins in a lot of these counties. Butler County, of course, where the assassination attempt took place. And then even around Philly, like this should all be blue if you're a Democrat, but it wasn't. Like in Bucks County, I mean, this is surprising to see Trump do that well, in Northampton County. So, it's one of those nights. It wouldn't be surprising to see Trump win, but I think to see a lot of these margins, we did have some surprise.
I wish I had better news for my daughter later this morning. I know Tim Miller and I were talking about this earlier when she and so many others wake up to this news. I wish I could have called her and told her that the first woman president had just been elected. I wish that. I won't be able to do that. But what I can do, what I can tell my daughter, and what I will tell my daughter, is that our roles as American citizens have never been more important than they are right now. I can tell her that there are still lots of good forces out there, forces for good in this country, and that they are going to be getting to work. This is a lot to digest. We've seen where this has all been headed. And one thing I just wanted to raise here is I was the communications director for President Obama when Donald Trump won in 2016. And one of the conversations we had that night that I'm certain the Biden team is having right now is about inviting Donald Trump to the White House. I think that Joe Biden will do that, and I think he should do that. That is about the continuity of government. But it's 8 years later, and we know a lot more. And that, I think, is a thing that's going to be hard for a lot of people in that building to digest. But it's also an important part of our democracy and how we operate. And being a model for that is an important part of lifting it up and protecting it.
The Associated Press has called the presidency for Republican Donald Trump. This call comes after the AP determined that Trump was the winner of the battleground state of Wisconsin, whose 10 electoral votes put him over the threshold of the 270 needed to be declared the winner of the race for the White House. Vote counting in some states is still ongoing. At this hour, we do have an update on the electoral votes for each candidate. Trump has 277, and Democrat Kamala Harris has 224.
A political victory that our country has never seen before, nothing like this. I want to thank the American people for the extraordinary honor of being elected your 47th president and your 45th president.
How did Trump pull this off?
So we're going to do a couple of things this morning. Anthony's going to walk through 3 states that so far the former president flipped in this election cycle. And while he does that, he's going to show you some things that are indicative of how that happened. And I'm going to give you some exit poll data while he's doing that to help explain the story. So let's start in Georgia, Anthony.
From the point of view of the data desk, Vlad, it was a story of consistency. Donald Trump hitting his marks with the people that he needed to win. So you can see it on this map, all these rural areas in red. Now what I'm going to show you, now the arrows are going to be big so you can see them on TV, right? But I want to show you the way in which this vote changed from 2020. In many cases across especially rural parts of the state, he did a couple of points better than he did in 2020, hitting his targets with rural voters, evangelical voters. Go for it, Major.
That's where we bring in the exit poll data to reinforce what you're seeing visually here. Among conservative voters, self-identified conservatives, Trump did 4 points better this cycle than 2020. White evangelicals, 5 points better than 2020. White and no college education, about even. But for those first 2 categories, the arrows and the exit polls tell the story. All right, Anthony, let's go to Pennsylvania.
Yep. Now, everybody had watched this going in, and I want to show you, because we always went out and talked to voters in and around the Philadelphia area and then up into the Lehigh Valley. Again, a lot of white working class voters here, a lot of suburban voters. Now, the key here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the 2020 vote, okay, and compare that in the area, and then watch what happens as Major, I'll hit it.
I'm pointing, he's hitting.
Watch this area here because it's kind of more red, but in 2020 it was kind of more blue, right? So now it came back a little bit more lighter red, a little more blue. That tells you that Donald Trump just enough swung some of those suburbs this year.
And now let's lay over the exit polls, explain what happened to the Democratic coalition. And it's perfectly illustrated by what you just saw in eastern Pennsylvania. Among Latino voters, Kamala Harris shed support as compared to Joe Biden, President Biden in 2020. Among young voters, didn't do as well as President Biden did in 2020. And even among women, slightly worse in 2024 for Vice President Harris than Joe Biden's performance. That is the cracking of the Democratic coalition,
which showed up in lots of battleground states, but most especially it showed up in the leakage seen here in eastern Pennsylvania. Now, let's round this out, Anthony. Let's go to Wisconsin.
Yep. Wisconsin, we called this, well, late into the night, even into the early morning hours. What we were waiting for was Milwaukee, but that's part of the tale here, which is to say that Democrats need to do well in a couple of key counties in Wisconsin, in Dane County around Madison, and then in Milwaukee here. And what you saw, and I'll compare this to 2020, was that Harris got just slightly fewer votes than Joe Biden, but she needed even more because, same story, Donald Trump had run up the score all throughout the rest of the state, again, with that consistency, and that's how he hit his marks.
And an exit poll piece of information that applies to Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. 3 states so far the former president has flipped. For voters who said their finances felt to them worse than 4 years ago, look at that number. 80% for former President Trump, 17% for Vice President Harris.
One of the greatest comebacks in political history, as many people put it to me last night. Think about this. A twice impeached, 4 times indicted, once convicted candidate now appears, or is at this point, the president-elect of the United States for a second time. And inside that Trump watch party headquarters, I noticed the first bubbles of excitement, of exuberance around 9 p.m. There was dancing full on the floor by 11 p.m. And after the network started projecting Pennsylvania and then Wisconsin in Donald Trump's favor, pure joy from his supporters. I asked people to summarize how they were feeling in one word. I got one person telling me fantastic, another relieved, still another vindicated. And then, of course, they heard from the now president-elect himself.
We overcame obstacles that nobody thought possible, and it is now clear that we've achieved the most incredible political thing. Look what happened. Is this crazy?
Listen up. It's time to make America great again. Trump, 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 Trump.
As we look now at what we have, Pennsylvania, is this a call, ladies and gentlemen? We are now projecting that Donald J. Trump will win the state of Pennsylvania. Former President Donald J.
It is just after 1:22 in the morning Eastern Time, and this is the biggest call of the night. Decision Desk HQ can now project that former President Donald Trump will be our next president, the 47th president of the United States. DDHQ projects Trump will win the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Having just predicted that he will win Alaska, that will put him at 270.
Market the speech of the market the beast. Market the speech of the market the beast. Market the speech of the market the beast.